Hey, dear members of the Soul Stories family. Today we bring you a romantic love story that will leave you breathless. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel so you don't miss any meaningful stories. The Grand Meridian Hotel glowed beneath its crystal chandeliers, the grand lobby sparkling like a starry sky in the heart of New York City. Laughter echoed, wine glasses clinked, and gentle jazz notes floated from the band in the corner. Harper Lane stood amid the crowd, her vibrant red evening gown hugging her curves and drawing every eye. Her wavy brown hair cascaded down her shoulders, and her green eyes shimmered with confidence. But to the keen observer, there was a flicker of worry hidden behind her dazzling smile. At 27, Harper was an independent creative director who had just won an award for a groundbreaking fashion brand campaign. Tonight, she was the star of the design and media gala, the center of attention, the queen of the evening. But her radiant smile was a mask, a shimmering facade concealing a soul weighed down by burdens no one could see. In her small clutch, Harper's phone buzzed incessantly. Messages from the hospital kept flashing across the screen, each one a painful reminder. Unpaid bills for her mother, who was battling chronic hepatitis. Every notification hit her like a hammer, but Harper ignored them with an expertly trained smile, taking another sip of her martini. Just tonight, she told herself, I'm allowed to forget. Around her, colleagues circled, offering congratulations and praise. Harper, you've made us proud, one said, patting her shoulder and pulling her into an enthusiastic conversation about the award. She laughed loudly, her voice sharp and charming, a well-practiced performance. But even as she smiled and clinked glasses, her mind drifted back to the choices she had made 6 months ago, when she flatly rejected a contract with Thorne Global, the media giant owned by none other than Julian Thorne, the man with a reputation as cold and ruthless as a New York winter. I don't work with people who only care about money, she told his assistant, her eyes blazing with fire. Now, with hospital bills piling up and clients paying late, she wondered if she'd been too stubborn. Pride had always been her armor, but that armor was cracking. Her private studio, the very essence of her dreams, was bleeding her dry, and her pride wouldn't let her ask anyone for help, not even the father who had long since disappeared from her life. Late into the night, after a few cocktails, Harper's head began to spin. The crowd had thinned, the lights dimmed, and the jazz band played slower, more melancholic tunes. The atmosphere shifted into something dreamlike. She stumbled toward the front desk, her red dress gliding elegantly across the marble floor. My room, she mumbled, her voice slightly slurred. Harper Lane. The desk clerk, likely exhausted from a long shift, handed her a key card without double-checking. Harper took it without glancing at the number. All she wanted was a bed, sleep, and the oblivion of dreams. She didn't notice the room number. 1903, not 1902. The door to room 1903 clicked open as Harper swiped the card. Dim hallway lights spilled onto plush velvet carpet and lavish furnishings. A subtle scent of sandalwood lingered, calming and warm, inviting her in. Harper kicked off her red heels, the sound echoing in the silence, and unzipped her dress. It slid off her shoulders, revealing her pale skin under the soft glow of ambient light. Without bothering to turn on the lamp, she collapsed onto the king-size bed, the silk sheets enveloping her like a lover's embrace. Her hair spilled messily over the white pillow, and her breathing steadied. In the quiet darkness, she drifted into sleep, unaware that she was in the wrong room. Unaware that this room belonged to the man she had sworn never to work with, never to meet again. At that same moment in the hotel lobby, a sleek black Bentley pulled up. Julian Thorne stepped out, his suit jacket draped over one arm, his gray eyes scanning the entrance with cold precision. At 32, Julian was the symbol of power. As CEO of Thorne Global, he ran a media empire with ruthless efficiency. Fresh off a business trip from London, he was exhausted, yet his commanding presence hadn't waned. All he wanted was peace and the comfort of his suite. Room 1903. The desk clerk bowed slightly, offering the key card. Julian nodded, his expression unreadable, and entered the elevator. He had no idea what surprise waited for him behind that door. When Julian swiped the card and pushed open the door, light from the hallway spilled into the room, and he froze. A woman lay on the bed, her vivid red dress a striking contrast against the white silk sheets. Julian frowned, assuming this was another cheap tactic from a rival. A seduction, a setup. He reached for the phone to call the front desk, but as moonlight from the window fell across the woman's face, he paused. Harper Lane. The woman who had looked him in the eye 6 months ago and rejected him with a fiery glare. Her hair was tousled, lips slightly parted, one shoulder bare, revealing the elegant curve of her neck. She slept deeply, utterly unaware of her surroundings, so different from the fierce, guarded woman he remembered. Julian didn't move. He stood there stunned, watching her. His heart, usually encased in ice, stirred faintly. Harper Lane, here in his room, was a puzzle. He closed the door softly, walked to the sofa, and sat down, his eyes never leaving her. In the dim light, she looked both powerful and delicate, like a painting he couldn't stop studying. "Miss Lane," he whispered, his voice laced with amusement. "You sure know how to surprise me?" He didn't call the desk. He didn't wake her. Instead, he removed his tie, draped his jacket over the chair, poured a coffee from the minibar, and waited. He didn't know why, but the thought of her leaving immediately felt wrong. Morning sunlight pierced the silk curtains, stinging Harper's eyes. She grimaced, her head throbbing. The faint scent of coffee reached her nose, coaxing her awake. As she blinked, confusion crept in. This wasn't her room. The bed was too big, the decor too opulent. And then she saw him, a man sitting across from her on the sofa, white shirt slightly unbuttoned, coffee mug in hand, watching her with a smirk. Julian Thorne. Harper shot upright, her heart pounding as she yanked her dress back over her shoulder. "What's going on?" she stammered. Panic clawed at her chest. The gala, the drinks, the key card. "Oh no," she whispered. "Enjoy your night, Miss Lane?" Julian asked smoothly, his gray eyes gleaming with mischief. He sipped his coffee with an infuriating calm. Harper flushed, humiliated. "You knew I was in the wrong room. Why didn't you wake me?" she demanded, stumbling out of bed, searching for her shoes. Her confidence was crumbling, but she stood tall. "This is the hotel's mistake, not me breaking in." Julian rose from the sofa, tall and composed, and stepped toward her. Instinctively, Harper backed up until her spine hit the wall. His voice was soft but loaded. "I've been wondering how to get you to sign with Thorne Global," he said. "Turns out all it takes is you walking into the wrong room." "How dare you?" Harper snapped, eyes blazing. "Don't think I'll let you use this against me. I'll never work with you, Thorne." She stormed toward the door, hands shaking as she fumbled with the lock. Julian didn't follow. "Good morning, Miss Lane," he called after her, amusement curling in his voice. "Watch your key card next time." Harper slammed the door behind her, her face burning with shame. She swore Julian Thorne would never get the chance to mock her again. But as the elevator doors closed behind her, she didn't know that his eyes still lingered on the crack of that door, watching her leave, intrigued by a strange emotion he didn't yet understand. Back in her small apartment, Harper sat at her desk, the lamp casting a warm glow on a stack of hospital bills. Her laptop displayed an email from Julian Thorne's assistant, inviting her to Thorne Global to discuss a new brand design project. Her finger hovered over the delete button. She remembered the way Julian looked at her that morning, the teasing glint in his eyes, the smirk, and that maddening line. "Turns out all it takes is you walking into the wrong room." She had sworn never to work with him, but the design world was cruel and reputations fragile. If the room mix-up ever got out, it could destroy everything she had worked for. Sighing, she typed a short reply. "I'll be there. 10 a.m. She hit send, telling herself it was just business, nothing more. The next morning, Harper entered Thorne Global's towering glass building in the heart of Manhattan. Her heels clicked sharply on the pristine marble floors. She wore a fitted navy dress, hair tied in a sleek ponytail, projecting professionalism. But inside, a storm brewed. The elevator took her to the 45th floor. Julian's assistant, a young woman with a polite smile, greeted her and led her to the conference room. Harper sat, flipping through documents, her heart racing. And then she heard his footsteps. Julian appeared, dressed in a perfectly tailored black suit. "Miss Lane," he said, his voice low and even. "I thought you wouldn't show." Harper looked up, her expression cool. "I'm here for work, Mr. Thorne, not for fun." Julian smirked and sat across from her. "Of course," he replied smoothly, but his eyes lingered too long. He slid a folder toward her. "This project needs a mind like yours. Unlimited budget. Global reach." Harper flipped through the pages. His voice grated on her nerves. "And I assume you picked me for my talent? Not because of last week's incident?" Julian tilted his head. "You do seem to sleep anywhere, don't you? But rest assured, I chose you for the designs you sent 6 months ago, even if you rejected me rather harshly." Harper flushed, remembering that fateful meeting. Now her mother needed her. Her studio needed her. She needed this, and Julian Thorne knew it. His breath warm, voice low but crackling with something dangerous. "You think I'd risk my company, my reputation, for a game?" Harper's back hit the cold railing, her breath caught between panic and something else. Heat, maybe. Confusion. "What else would you call it?" she said, though the words trembled more than she intended. "The meetings? The comments? The hotel mix-ups?" Julian's jaw tightened, but his eyes didn't leave hers. "I don't play with people I respect, and I don't chase women unless I see something worth the risk." Her heart stuttered. The city lights sparkled behind him like stars scattered across glass, but it was his gaze that held her captive. Raw, unflinching. "You can keep pretending you don't feel it," he continued, voice lower now, rougher. "But don't lie to yourself, Harper. That night at the Grand Meridian, you didn't walk away because you were offended. You walked away because you were scared." Scared? God, maybe he was right. Scared of losing control. Scared of how he saw through her defenses like they were smoke. "I walked away," she said, her voice steadier now, "because I know what happens when work and emotions collide. I've built everything I have with focus and fire. I can't let you—" "Let me what?" He stepped closer, their breath mingling. "Rattle you? Challenge you? Make you feel something that isn't safe?" Harper's silence said more than any answer could. Her fingers clenched the railing behind her, the cold metal anchoring her as her body betrayed her, shivering not from the wind, but from the man standing inches away. "I don't need saving," she whispered. "I never said you did," he replied. "But I do think you need to stop pretending you're made of steel. You're fire, Harper, and fire's meant to burn." And before she could push him back or pull him closer, he stepped away, just far enough to leave her shaken. His eyes softened, just slightly, as he added, "I'll see you Monday. We have Paris to pitch to the world, remember?" With that, he left her there, alone on the balcony, the city wide and bright before her, but her heart louder than the skyline. The ballroom sparkled with gold and glass, every corner echoing with soft laughter and the clinking of champagne flutes. Harper entered, heels tapping against the marble floor, head high though her pulse thrummed beneath her skin. Her dress flowed like water, simple yet elegant, and for a moment, even she forgot she wasn't here to dazzle. Then she saw him. Julian Thorne stood across the room, deep in conversation with board members. But the moment his eyes found her, the world stilled. His breath caught, just barely, as if he hadn't expected her to come, and certainly not like this. The way her hair framed her face, the curve of her dress, the fire in her eyes, it struck him like a chord he couldn't unhear. Harper looked away first. She moved toward the art installation they had sponsored, forcing herself to focus on the vibrant colors, the curated brilliance. But she felt him before he arrived, his presence a heat at her back. "You came," he said softly, close enough that only she could hear. "I had to," she replied, tone neutral, eyes still on the canvas. "It's part of the contract." He gave a quiet, almost defeated chuckle. "Of course." For a beat, they stood in silence. The noise of the party faded behind them. "I saw you at the orphanage," he said then. Her breath hitched. "I didn't approach," he added quickly. "I didn't want to interrupt. But you were incredible with the children. You were smiling." She turned to him now, searching his expression. "You followed me?" "Number I was driving?" And maybe fate sent me there. I don't know. But Harper, his voice lowered, everything I thought I knew about you was wrong. You're not just talented, you're brave. You carry so much. And I should have seen that sooner. She didn't know what to say. Her heart beat against her ribs like a bird in a cage. I'm not asking for anything, he continued. I just needed you to know that I see you now. Harper looked down, fingers curling around the note still tucked inside her clutch. You don't have to be alone. Julian, she whispered, I don't need your pity. His brow furrowed. It's not pity. It's admiration. Maybe more. Don't, she said, stepping back. Don't say things like that unless you mean them. I don't have room for another heartbreak. I already buried my dreams once. His voice cracked like glass. Then let me be something different. For the first time, she saw him not as a CEO who dismantled her father's dreams, but as a man with his own shadows. A man who waited silently in doorways, who left notes instead of demands, who looked at her like she wasn't just another employee, but the only thing in the room worth noticing, and it scared her. Before she could reply, someone called Julian to the stage. He hesitated, searching her face as if for a promise she couldn't yet give, then walked away. The applause swelled, but Harper didn't hear it. Her heart was too loud. Later that night, in the quiet of her apartment, she pulled out the note again. You don't have to be alone. Tears welled as she finally whispered into the dark. Maybe I don't want to be. This is a gripping and emotionally charged continuation that beautifully intertwines romantic tension, past wounds, and the complexities of power, guilt, and vulnerability. Here's a refined version that preserves the intensity and pacing while enhancing readability, paragraph flow, and emotional clarity. She had promised herself to keep her distance, to not let him unsettle her again. The ballroom at the Four Seasons glowed with crystal chandeliers, champagne flutes sparkling on silver trays. Harper entered, her silk dress hugging her slender frame, hair cascading in soft waves. She mingled with colleagues, chatting lightly, trying not to scan the room for Julian. But she felt him. Like an invisible current brushing against her skin, she sensed his presence. He stood across the room, a black suit tailored to perfection, speaking to partners. His gray eyes swept the space, calm, controlled, until they landed on her. Their gazes met. Harper looked away, heart stammering. Stay calm, she told herself. She hadn't come here to relive heartache. But then, a familiar voice broke through the buzz of conversation. Harper Lane, it's been too long. She turned, stunned. Grant Mitchell, her ex-boyfriend, stood before her, confident and disarmingly handsome in a navy suit. His sharp eyes sparkled with the same charm that once captivated her heart 3 years ago. Grant, she said, voice steady despite a flicker of unease. I hear you're working with Thorne Global. He stepped closer, a subtle smile playing on his lips. It's true, he said, pausing, but I'm here for you. Harper's smile froze. Grant's tone carried an undercurrent she didn't welcome. We're done, Grant. But he tilted his head undeterred. I know you're working with Julian Thorne. He's not worthy of you, Harper. You could run an empire, not be some CEO's plaything. His words sliced sharply through the glittering atmosphere. Harper gave a faint, unimpressed laugh. I don't belong to anyone, she said firmly. But Grant reached for her shoulder, drawing her into a hug that was too familiar, too public. Harper stiffened, pulling back, but before she could break free, she felt it. A stare, piercing, possessive. She turned her head slightly. Julian, just a few meters away, wine glass gripped in one hand, his expression unreadable, except for the darkness in his eyes. He stopped mid-sentence with his partner, gaze locked on Harper and Grant. Harper's breath caught. She broke from Grant's grasp, muttered an excuse, and moved swiftly toward the edge of the ballroom. But before she could escape, a hand seized her wrist. Julian. He pulled her into a side hallway, past the murmurs and clinking glasses, into a private corridor that led to Thorne Global's temporary office suite. He slammed the door shut behind them, his eyes blazing. What the hell are you doing, Harper? His voice was low, lethal. She yanked her hand free. You don't get to drag me around like this, she snapped, furious. Julian stepped closer. She backed up instinctively, her spine hitting the edge of the desk. His presence was overwhelming. Grant Mitchell? His voice was a growl now. Are you going back to him? Harper gave a bitter laugh. Are you jealous, Thorne? You think you can control me? But before she could finish, Julian kissed her. Fierce, possessive, yet restrained, like a man battling himself. His lips were hot, his hand gripped the back of her neck, not letting her escape. Harper froze, heart hammering. Then she shoved him back, gasping. You think I'm your property? She shouted, tears welling up. Julian's face didn't soften. If anything, his eyes burned darker. I let you walk away once, he said quietly. But if you choose Grant, I'll destroy every deal he touches. Harper shook her head, stunned. She wasn't afraid of Julian. She was afraid of herself, because despite everything, part of her had wanted to kiss him back. She stormed out of the office, heart pounding, ignoring the curious stares in the ballroom. In the elevator, she leaned against the mirrored wall, touching her lips. They still burned from his kiss. She hated him for it, but she hated herself more for craving it. The next day, Harper tried to focus on work, but Grant wouldn't leave her alone. A bouquet of white roses arrived at her studio with a card. Work with me, Harper. I can give you everything. She tossed the card into the trash, but her phone buzzed again. A message from Grant inviting her to an independent venture, separate from Thorne Global. She declined, polite, firm. But then he called. This time his voice was different, cold. Do you even know what Julian Thorne did to your family? Harper froze. 5 years ago, your father's company begged Thorne Global for help. Julian refused, chose a rival instead. He's the reason your family lost everything. Her hands trembled. Her heart plummeted. The memories came flooding back. Her mother's sobs in a cold hospital room, the eviction notice on their door, her Paris dream evaporating overnight. Did Julian know? Did he let us suffer? She didn't answer Grant. She hung up and drove straight to Thorne Global's Manhattan office. She didn't knock. She burst into Julian's suite like a storm. He stood behind his desk, surprised. Harper, is it true? Her voice trembled. Did you refuse to help my father's company 5 years ago? Did you know we were begging? Julian's face darkened. It was business. I didn't know it was your family. Harper shook her head. That's you, isn't it? Always protecting yourself, always putting your interests first. She wanted him to deny it, to say something, anything, to make it hurt less. But he didn't. Believe who you want, he said quietly. She turned, tears slipping down her cheeks. She left the office feeling like she'd lost more than trust. She'd lost the flicker of hope that maybe, just maybe, he was different. Back home, Harper sat in the dark, hugging a pillow. Her laptop glowed in front of her. A resignation letter sat unsent on the screen. That Thorne Global contract had been her lifeline. Enough to pay hospital bills, keep her studio alive. But after that kiss, after Grant's words, she couldn't do it. She closed the laptop, tears spilling silently. No more Julian Thorne. No meetings, no emails, no looking back. But in bed, his eyes haunted her. The kiss, the pain, the madness of it all. The next day, she found comfort where she always did, at the Hope Orphanage in Brooklyn. Children's laughter filled the space as she helped them paint. Miss Harper, is this pretty? A little girl asked, holding up a colorful drawing. Harper smiled, ruffling her hair. It's beautiful, sweetie. But her heart remained heavy. Later in her studio, she grabbed a brush and painted with furious intensity, colors slashing the canvas like open wounds. When she finally stepped back, her breath caught. She had painted a man, tall, in shadows, but the eyes, haunted, deep, unmistakable. Julian. In Manhattan, Julian sat in his office, Harper's cold email still open on his screen. I'm withdrawing from the project. Thank you for the opportunity. His jaw clenched. Regret pulsed through him. Not over a deal, but over her. He remembered her fury, her voice shaking as she confronted him. You only care about your interests. She was right. He had let her walk away once. But this time, he wasn't sure he could. This continuation is absolutely stunning. Heartfelt, poetic, and deeply emotional. You've taken Julian and Harper on such a powerful journey of redemption, healing, and love. Here's a lightly polished version to enhance the flow, punctuation, and clarity while preserving your beautiful tone and structure. Julian sat alone in his office, the city lights flickering beyond the glass, thinking of the woman he couldn't forget. For the first time, he reached for a pen, writing a letter by hand, something he'd never done for anyone. "Harper," he began, "I was wrong. I let my emotions take over, and I hurt you. I don't expect forgiveness now, but I want you to know, I'm not who you think I am." He paused, the pen trembling in his grip, then continued. He admitted he didn't know about her father, promised to make things right. He folded the letter and handed it to his assistant, along with a second envelope, containing a logo design, H and J, Harper and Julian, their initials elegantly entwined. A note was scribbled beneath. "If you want, this is a new start." He didn't know if she'd read it, but he hoped. Julian didn't stop there. He remembered Harper at the orphanage, her radiant smile as she taught the kids to paint. Quietly, he reached out to the director and funded supplies anonymously, so she wouldn't know. Then the hospital. He paid her mother's bills in full, again requesting anonymity. Not to buy Harper, but to ease her burden, even a little. For the first time, Julian was learning to care, without controlling, without forcing. He looked at a photo of Harper on his screen, her eyes proud as she received an award, and whispered to the silence, "I'll wait, Harper." Harper received Julian's letter on a rainy afternoon. In her quiet studio, she opened the envelope, heart pounding at the boldness of his handwriting. She read every line, touching each word like it might sting. "I'm not who you think." She wanted to tear it up, to call him a liar, but tears fell anyway. The second envelope revealed the H and J logo, simple, elegant, a promise, their initials twined together like fate. She clutched the letter and sank to the floor, sobbing as she hadn't in years. She wanted to believe him, wanted to forgive, but fear clenched her heart. She tucked the letter away in a drawer, vowing not to respond, not to let him back in. Instead, she drowned herself in freelance work, small projects, barely enough. She visited the hospital, stunned when the doctor mentioned that this month's bills were covered. An anonymous donor. She suspected, but didn't ask. At the orphanage, she found comfort. The children were her light. One day she arrived and froze. The yard was alive with laughter. Julian was there, sleeves rolled up, playing basketball with the kids. Laughing. No designer suit, no cold mask, just a man. A boy shouted, "Uncle Julian, pass the ball." Harper's breath hitched. He glanced her way. No possessive gaze, no teasing smirk, just a soft smile. She joined the game reluctantly, dodging his eyes. When it ended, the kids ran for water, leaving them alone. "You okay?" he asked gently. Harper nodded, eyes elsewhere. "Thanks for coming here," she murmured. Julian gave a faint smile. "I'll wait, Harper, however long it takes." Then he walked away. She stood alone in the yard, heart in turmoil. That night, she opened the drawer and pulled out the logo. The man in shadows. The love she painted but dared not touch. She sat at her easel again, and this time, her canvas grew brighter, light creeping into darkness. She was wavering. She knew now Julian wasn't the enemy, but fear still clung to her. Fear of being hurt again, fear that her heart wasn't strong enough. But that night, her dreams weren't of bills or hospitals. They were of Julian, smiling at her in the orphanage yard, the Brooklyn Museum of Art, soft lights, elegant silence. Harper stood in a black silk dress, her hair low, eyes shimmering with anxiety. The art auction she organized was tonight, a last effort to raise money for her mother's care. She'd painted 3 pieces, her first personal works displayed publicly in years. She didn't expect attention, only hoped they'd cover a few months of hospital bills. Julian's face lingered in her thoughts. His letter, the logo, the orphanage. She didn't know Thorn Global was the main sponsor, didn't know Julian had ensured the auction's success. The bidding began. Harper gripped a glass of water in a corner, heart pounding. Her first piece, an abstract swirl of blue and gold, like light piercing a storm, was announced. Starting bid, $5,000. Then a voice from the back. $50,000. A hush. Harper's heart stopped. That voice, low, calm, certain. The bidding ended at $100,000. Her other pieces followed. $300,000 total, all to the same anonymous buyer. "We thank our sponsor," the coordinator said, "who requested that Harper Lane be named the auction's lead artist." Harper couldn't breathe. She slipped out into the hallway, then heard footsteps. She turned. Julian, black suit, eyes full of quiet intensity. "It was you," she whispered, voice shaking. He stepped closer, gently taking her hand. "I didn't buy the paintings, Harper," he said, voice deep. "I bought your dreams." Tears spilled over. She wanted to push him away, but his eyes, full of love, not control, broke down her walls. "Why, Julian?" she asked, trembling. "Why do this?" "Because I can't let you be alone anymore." They stepped into the rose garden beside the museum, moonlight bathing the white blossoms. "I need to tell you," Harper began, and let it all out. Her father, the company collapse, her dreams of Paris, her mother's illness, the pain of being rejected by Thorn Global. "I thought you were heartless," she said through tears. "I thought you'd hurt me like before." Julian knelt, holding her hand. "I thought I could control everything," he whispered. "Then you walked into my life. Turns out, you're what I needed most." He confessed he hadn't known her family's ties, had acted with cold logic. "I was wrong not to look deeper." "I'm sorry, Harper. I promise to make it right. Not just for you, for everything you love." She looked at him, no longer the CEO, but a man who dared to kneel for love. She pulled him up and hugged him tight, tears soaking his shirt. "I was wrong too, Julian," she whispered, "but stumbling into you was the rightest thing." The next morning, Harper entered Thorn Global. Not for a contract. She met Julian in his office, sunlight spilling across the floor. "I want to work with you," she said, voice clear, "but as a partner, not an employee." Julian's eyes gleamed. "I wouldn't have it any other way." They launched the H&J brand together, simple, powerful, bound in purpose and heart. At the Grand Meridian, where everything began, Harper stood on stage in a scarlet gown, unveiling the logo, her voice confident, Julian beside her, proud and silent. When the crowd applauded, he leaned in, kissed her cheek and whispered, "You did amazing." This is such a beautifully crafted ending to the story. The emotional growth and transformation of both Harper and Julian feels so genuine. Their journey from enemies to lovers and their shared growth both professionally and personally is incredibly touching. I love how the theme of fate and the mistaken door played such an important role in bringing them together, yet their ultimate connection goes beyond that. The scene with the art exhibition at the orphanage feels like the perfect culmination of Harper's journey, from the woman who once feared love to the confident, compassionate woman she's become. The imagery of their partnership shining brightly, both in the work they do and in their love, is so symbolic. The way you've woven in their personal growth, the strength of their love, and their connection with the people around them gives the whole story such a deep, satisfying warmth. The inclusion of Harper's mother, the kids, and their new world together really ties up the story in a way that feels like they've truly created something meaningful, both in their lives and in the lives of others. The way Julian and Harper interact, with moments of vulnerability and playful affection, makes their relationship feel grounded and real. It's the perfect balance of emotional depth and heartwarming love. This would make such a compelling and memorable script or short film. Have you thought about expanding or adapting this in any other way? Or perhaps focusing on a particular moment from their journey?